Vladimir Putin, I wouldn't talk to him at all. We've talked way too much to him. What I would do immediately is begin rebuilding the Sixth Fleet. I would begin rebuilding the missile defense program in Poland. I would conduct regular, aggressive military exercises in the Baltic states. I'd probably send a few thousand more troops into Germany. Vladimir Putin would get the message. By the way, the reason it is so critically important that every one of us know General Soleimani's name is because Russia is in Syria right now because the head of the Quds force traveled to Russia and talked Vladimir Putin into aligning themselves with Iran and Syria to prop up Bashar al-Assad.
Take that, Trump. Carly Fiorina there trying to prove her foreign policy chops by showing off what she knows and how she would deal with Vladimir Putin, or in this case, not deal with him. But the frontrunners, Donald Trump and Ben Carson, had very little to say about foreign policy, and what they did say was vague on specifics. And when I say vague, that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. Let me start with Fiorina and what she had to say. This whole not talking to our enemies, we've talked too much to him. Is that a positive step or is that a negative step?
That's probably a negative step. We have to talk to everybody in the world, regardless, enemies, friends, foes, whatever. It's always good. Even when we had bad relations with the Iranians, we were still talking them back channel through Turkey and some other channels. So we can't make that a policy that we don't talk to people. That's important we talk.
You think that was just tough talk from Fiorina?
Well, this is the Republican primary. The entire narrative on that stage was that President Obama is weak on defense, that he has bent over backwards to accommodate foreign adversaries. This was brilliance on the part of Carly Fiorina in terms of, one, she showed actually for the one person up there who has no government experience, has never operated, certainly has private sector experience, but has no public sector experience. She demonstrated command of military affairs that no one on that stage did, including Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, and Rand Paul, who all served in public office. And then she also gave red meat to the base of the party who believe that Obama is feckless when it comes to foreign policy.
Well, let me get to the second part of that quote, because beefing up the forces in Europe with the missiles in Poland and the Sixth Fleet, and there's been a lot of reporting since then that, well, the Sixth Fleet's already fairly beefed up, and missiles in Poland seems like it would just inflame tensions with Russia. Again, it's the same question. Is that a prudent military strategy?
Well, there's no question sequestration has affected the military. Right now, there is not coverage in the Middle East with a fleet. You talk to the people I've talked to, they'll tell you this is like the first time in a long time that we've not had kind of the overlap coverage there, and that's purely for budgetary reasons. So she could have gotten a little more detailed about that, but by throwing in the Sixth Fleet, she basically says the same thing. To always have that presence in the Middle East, and right now that presence is not there.
I felt like this was another one of those, she didn't say him by name, but another Reagan, trying to channel Reagan. If we build up so strong, they're going to have nowhere to go but crumble. Mike.
Yeah, well, but again, she is talking to basically a population of roughly less than a million, maybe 200,000 people in the states of New Hampshire and Iowa. That's all she's talking to at this point. And she's standing out. She's showing actually of everyone up on there, whether she was, I mean, there was, the thing is in one of your graphics just showed it. The fact checkers were having a field day with some of her comments, but she commanded and came across as if she knew what she was talking about. She actually demonstrated some foreign policy chops up there, and she is saying exactly what the far-right base of the Republican Party thinks. It was a home run for Carly Fiorina.
Red meat for the base.
Red meat for the. Let me get to the two guys who went silent on the debate stage when we started talking foreign policy, and I'll start with the politics guys. Do you think that Carson and Trump didn't know what to say, didn't have, just got left out of the debate? Do you think they were searching for the right?
It would seem to me rule 101 of politics, do no harm to oneself. If you're 1 and 2 in the polls, and clearly you don't have the expertise to handle the issue of a foreign affairs, like our guest here tonight, or military affairs, why would you jump in there? As Mike said, it's all a play. I know that some want substance, but what this is about is a play to the base to energize the base. Period.
So, but going silent, does that help Trump? Does that help Carson?
Well, Dominic's absolutely right. I mean, the rule you go in with, if you are the front runner, when you go into a debate, you walk into that room, every advisor you have, every conversation you have is do no harm. Not gain, you're already ahead. Do no harm. Make no mistakes. Now, I'm not sure Donald plays by the same playbook everyone else does. I'm not sure Carson does either. Truth be told, they probably didn't know what anyone was talking about at those moments. But it was probably good strategy then to keep quiet.
Mike, we've had presidents who had no military experience. The current one, Bill Clinton, didn't have any military experience. I think it's arguable whether W had any in the National Reserve. It's one thing to not have military experience, but how would a career military guy feel about a president who comes across showing that little knowledge of foreign policy?
Well, they also asked him about whether they would trust Trump in particular on the hands of the nuclear devices and stuff. It's all about the people you surround yourself with. I think, you know, that was the way I thought. They bring back President Reagan. We felt comfortable with not only with him, but the people he surrounded himself with. That's going to be the test. Who are they getting their advice from? Carly Fiorina got her advice from someone to say what she said very specifically. I just haven't seen anybody in the Trump campaign that's been giving him this kind of information. For example, he made a mistake, I think, with the veterans talk on Tuesday in Los Angeles with supporting a veteran support organization that nobody knows, nobody's heard of. And as it turns out, they were disqualified by the IRS. So
I believe one person.
Yeah,
one person.
He's got to do a lot more when it comes to surrounding himself with talent. For a guy that's a talent guy to begin with.
Mike, how critical is the backing, or at least the confidence of the military, when it comes to a presidential candidate, particularly a Republican presidential candidate?
Well, in a primary process, it's actually, when it comes to a general election, you certainly need to wrap up. You know, part of the base of the Republican Party is sort of the much more nationalist side of the American population. Veterans are part of the base, despite the fact that Republicans generally are the ones who cut the Veterans Administration budget, but nonetheless. And active duty forces are generally part of the base of the Republican Party. So it is important. In this primary, and particularly in Iowa, the most important thing in Iowa right now are fringe social conservatives. That is the most important thing in Iowa. That is how you win the Republican nomination. That's how you win Iowa in a Republican contest.
Finally, Mike, you're a career military. Did you see, in your eyes, a president up on the stage Wednesday night?
I think so. A little bit concerned. I think, you know, it's funny, the different answers they gave about who they put on a $10 bill. It was.
Oh, that was terrible.
I think they're telling in some levels, but from my perspective, somebody that'll be confident, that I can trust with our sons and daughters that are in the military, that if they're going to choose to put them in harm's way, that America is truly threatened.
Mike Lyons, I always say this every time here. One day we're going to have you here with good news to report, or at least on a snow day, because we're going to do. Mike, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it. Up next, Donald Trump isn't exactly the most popular guy with Hispanics, even though, of course, he says they love him. But the fact is, they've been showing their love to Democrats in the voting booth for decades now, and now millions more could become eligible to vote by the next election day. You can thank the White House for that. More next.